It was an important day in the Galactic Council. Leaders from countless alien races gathered in a massive, brightly lit room. The walls were made of sleek silver metal, and tall windows stretched from floor to ceiling, showing the stars far outside. The room was filled with the voices of the most powerful beings in the galaxy, each of them discussing the future of the galaxy's most precious resources, trading agreements, and potential threats. Among these leaders was a young human woman named Clara, a quiet but determined engineer from Earth. Today was her moment to speak for her people, to show the galaxy what Earth had been working on in secret for the past few years. But Clara was nervous. She had heard the whispers before, the jokes about humanity, about Earth being a small primitive planet. It didn't help that she was the only human in the room, surrounded by tall, elegant alien representatives who had lived for centuries. Clara took a deep breath and stepped up to the podium. The chatter in the room died down as all eyes turned toward her. She was about to present something that would either make Earth the laughingstock of the galaxy or force them to rethink everything they believed about humankind. "Good afternoon, council members," Clara said, her voice steady despite her nerves. "I am Clara, a representative from Earth. Today, I stand before you to present humanity's new fleet." She pressed a button on a console in front of her, and a hologram flickered to life in the center of the room. A series of small ships, no larger than typical cargo vessels, appeared in midair. Each one looked simple, almost ordinary, compared to the sleek, powerful warships that filled the rest of the galaxy. The ships were small, angular, and built for stealth rather than show. The council members looked at each other, and then, without warning, they burst into laughter. "This is your fleet?" one of the alien leaders asked, his voice thick with mockery. His name was Zoreth, a leader of the Draxi Empire. His people were known for their massive, towering warships that could destroy entire planets. "These tiny ships couldn't even scratch our ships if they tried." Clara stood still, trying to ignore the mocking laughter that echoed around the room. The alien leaders made jokes, some too cruel to repeat, but Clara held her ground. She had worked hard for this moment. Her people had poured every ounce of their creativity into these ships, and they would prove the galaxy wrong. The laughter eventually died down, and Clara continued. "I know they look small. I know you probably think Earth has no chance against your great fleets," she said, her voice calm but filled with conviction. "But these ships are not what you think. They are equipped with the latest human technology that no other race in the galaxy has. They are designed for speed, precision, and most importantly, stealth." The room went silent. Clara could see the alien leaders exchanging confused glances. They were intrigued, but still skeptical. "Stealth?" Zoreth asked, his tone still full of disbelief. "What can a tiny ship like that do in a fight? Are you really suggesting they can match our warships?" Clara nodded, keeping her expression serious. "Yes, these ships are built to blend into the environment. They can move without being detected, even by the most advanced sensors. And their weapons are designed to disable, not destroy. Our goal is to end conflict without the need for destruction." The council members stared at the hologram, their expressions still filled with doubt. "You've made a mistake," one of them, a tall alien woman named Vessa, said. "You should not have come here with such an unworthy fleet." Clara didn't flinch. "You'll see soon enough," she said, more to herself than to anyone else. "You'll see that humanity's tiny fleet is not something you should underestimate." The alien leaders exchanged uncertain looks, but Clara could tell they weren't convinced. They saw Earth's fleet as nothing more than a joke, a last-minute attempt by a weak species to defend itself. The reality, however, was far different. What Clara and her team had built wasn't just a fleet, it was a game-changer. She stepped back from the podium, a mix of pride and anxiety swirling inside her. The presentation was over, and now it was out of her hands. The galaxy had laughed at the human fleet, but soon they would learn just how powerful Earth's small ships truly were. As Clara left the stage, She could hear the whispers behind her. The laughter hadn't stopped, but she knew better than to be discouraged. The journey had just begun. The meeting in the Galactic Council room had ended, but Clara could not shake the feeling of disappointment. The alien leaders had laughed at her people's fleet, their eyes filled with disbelief. Despite her calm and confident words, she knew they didn't take Earth's new ships seriously. To them, humanity was still that small young planet, a species struggling to keep up with the grand powers of the galaxy. But Clara wasn't worried. She knew something the Council didn't. The ships Earth had built were not just ordinary ships. They were something special, and they were about to show the galaxy that humanity was far more than they ever expected. Back on Earth, Clara and her team had spent years working in secret. While the rest of the galaxy enjoyed their grand space fleets, Earth had taken a different approach. They had studied the ways of the stars, observing the most powerful ships and learning from them. But rather than copying them, humanity's engineers had decided to think outside the box. The idea was simple. Earth couldn't compete with size and firepower, but they could outsmart their enemies. Instead of building a fleet of giant warships, they built a fleet of small, highly advanced ships, each one designed for stealth, speed, and surprise. These ships were equipped with technology that no other alien race had seen before. The first breakthrough came with their engines. Clara and her team developed a quantum engine that allowed the ships to bend space around them. This meant they could travel faster than any ship in the galaxy, and they could do so without leaving a trail, making them nearly impossible to detect. But it wasn't just the speed that made these ships special. Earth's engineers had also developed cloaking technology that allowed the ships to disappear completely. When activated, the ships could blend into their surroundings, even in the most heavily monitored areas. It was almost like the ships were invisible to the most advanced sensors. Then came the weapons. The human fleet wasn't designed to destroy planets like the massive warships of the Draxi Empire or the Ionian fleet. Instead, the ships carried weapons designed to disable, not annihilate. The idea was simple: take out the enemy's ability to fight without causing widespread destruction. They used electromagnetic pulse, EMP, weapons to disable shields and engines, making it easier to take control of enemy ships or force them to retreat. These ships were small, but they were not weak. They were incredibly powerful in ways the aliens had never imagined. Clara remembered the long nights she spent in the lab, working with her team to perfect the designs. It wasn't just the technology that made these ships special. It was the creativity and determination of the humans who built them. Every challenge was met with an innovative solution. Every limitation was turned into an advantage. We may not be as big as the others, but we can move faster, think smarter, and strike when they least expect it, Clara often said to her team, and they believed in her vision. Earth wasn't going to win by being bigger or stronger. It was going to win by being different. As Clara sat in her small office back on Earth, she thought about the future. The meeting with the Galactic Council had not gone as she had hoped, but it was just the beginning. The aliens may have laughed, but humanity's fleet was ready for action, and it was only a matter of time before the galaxy realized that the tiny fleet wasn't something to be taken lightly. Weeks later, Clara and her team received their first official test. A large alien warship from the Draxi Empire had appeared on the outskirts of Earth's solar system. They had come to investigate the human fleet and make sure it was as weak as they had assumed. But Clara knew better. The fleet might be small, but it was more than capable of handling whatever came their way. The human fleet was quickly deployed, each ship moving silently into position. They didn't need to engage in a large-scale battle. Instead, their plan was to use their stealth and speed to get close to the enemy warship without being detected. Once they were in position, they would disable the Draxi ship's engines and weapons, forcing them to surrender without a single shot being fired. Clara's heart raced as she watched the holographic screens in front of her. The fleet was moving into position, and every ship was in perfect sync. They were ready. As the alien warship neared Earth's orbit, The human fleet activated their cloaking devices. One by one, the small ships vanished from sight, blending into the stars and the deep black of space. The Draxi warship passed by, unaware that Earth's fleet was just a few kilometers away, watching and waiting. Clara knew that the aliens would underestimate them. They already had, but in the coming moments, everything would change. Earth's fleet would show the galaxy that it was no longer a joke. The time for the galaxy to laugh at humanity had ended. Now they would learn to fear the tiny fleet. The tension was thick as Clara watched the holographic screens flicker in front of her. Her team had worked tirelessly, and now it was time to see if their plan would work. The Draxi warship loomed just beyond Earth's orbit, an imposing force that could easily crush any smaller fleet that dared to challenge it. But Clara was confident. The tiny fleet was more than capable of handling this threat. She sat at the command center, her hands resting on the controls, watching as the small human ships silently moved into position. Each ship was hidden from view, their cloaking devices activated. They had trained for this moment for months. Every move, every decision, practiced over and over. It was all leading up to this. The alien warship, massive and sleek, floated in the distance, unaware of the fleet waiting just outside its sensors. Clara had to admit, the Draxi warship was an impressive sight. Its sharp angles and enormous size made it look invincible, but Clara knew that appearances could be deceiving. The human fleet may have been small, but it was about to show the galaxy that size wasn't everything. "We're ready," Clara said quietly to herself. She looked around at her team, who were monitoring the mission closely. Their faces were calm, but Clara could sense the same nervous excitement she felt. "Clara," one of her team members, Mia, called out from her station. "We have the signal. The Draxi ship is still on course. It won't detect us unless it passes within 5 kilometers. Clara nodded. The plan was simple. The fleet would remain hidden, getting closer and closer until they were in range. At that point, the ships would release a pulse of electromagnetic energy to disable the Draxi warship's engines and shields. The fleet would then board the ship and take control, forcing the Draxi to surrender. "Hold your position," Clara commanded. "Stay close, but stay hidden. We need to wait until the exact moment." She could feel the pulse of nervous energy in the room. Everyone was waiting for her to give the signal. The silence was deafening, broken only by the soft hum of the ship's engines and the occasional click of a console. Outside, in the vastness of space, the Draxi warship drifted closer, unaware of the silent fleet closing in. Then, finally, it happened. The Draxi warship began to approach the 5-kilometer mark. The human fleet, still cloaked, remained perfectly still. Clara watched the countdown on her screen as the distance between them narrowed. 5 kilometers, Maya said, her voice tense but steady. "We're almost there." Clara's hand hovered over the control panel. She had to make the decision. The timing was everything. Too early, and the Draxi would detect the fleet. Too late, and the warship would pass by, and they would lose their chance. Now, Clara said, her voice sharp and clear. At her command, the ships activated their EMP weapons, releasing a powerful wave of energy. The shockwave traveled through space, targeting the Draxi warship's engines and shields. For a moment, nothing happened. Clara's heart skipped a beat. Had they failed? Had the Draxi ship's technology been too advanced? Then, slowly, the Draxi warship began to shudder. The ship's engines sputtered and flickered. The shields, once glowing with energy, flickered out. Clara exhaled in relief. The mission had succeeded. The warship was powerless. "Engage," Clara ordered, her voice steady now. "Board the ship. No one fires a shot unless we have to." One by one, the human ships deactivated their cloaking devices and moved in. They flew swiftly, using their superior speed to get close to the Draxi warship without giving them time to react. The Draxi crew, still confused by the sudden loss of power, were scrambling to understand what was happening. But by the time they realized what was going on, the human ships had already docked with the warship's outer airlock. The fleet's elite boarding teams, trained in every aspect of combat and negotiation, quickly made their way inside. The Draxi were caught off guard. They were used to overwhelming force, but they were now facing an enemy they had underestimated. Inside the warship, the human team moved swiftly, taking control of key areas without firing a single shot. The Draxi crew, disoriented and confused, were captured quickly, unable to resist the human tactics. The boarding teams had been trained to disable, not destroy, and the plan worked perfectly. Clara watched the live feed from her command station, her eyes narrowing in focus. The Draxi were trapped. Their ship was theirs, and Earth's tiny fleet had proven that it could take on the galaxy's biggest powers. "This is a victory," Clara said, a smile creeping across her face. "We've done it." The rest of the team erupted in cheers. It had been a success beyond their wildest dreams. The Draxi Empire, once so sure of its superiority, now had to face the fact that humanity wasn't as weak as they had believed. The galaxy would never laugh at Earth again. The human fleet's victory over the Draxi warship was only the beginning. Clara and her team had proven that their strategy could work, but the galaxy had not yet seen the full power of Earth's new fleet. As the Draxi warship was escorted back to Earth, Clara felt a mix of excitement and uncertainty. The victory had been swift, but now the real challenge began. The Draxi Empire was not going to let a single defeat go unnoticed. They were already making plans to respond, and Earth was preparing for the worst. Clara sat at her desk, staring at the communication feed from the Galactic Council. The aliens were still in shock, trying to understand how their massive warship had been so easily overpowered by a fleet of tiny ships. "We did it," Clara whispered to herself, but she couldn't shake the feeling that the real test was coming. The Draxi Empire would not take this lightly. They would learn from their mistake, and they would come back stronger. Clara's thoughts were interrupted by the sound of a knock at her door. It was Mia, her trusted right-hand officer. "Clara, we need to talk," Maya said, her expression serious. "The Draxi aren't going to just sit back and take this. Their leaders have already begun making threats. They're not happy." Clara nodded. She had expected this. "What's their next move?" "They've already started mobilizing their fleets," Mia explained. "They're preparing for a counterattack, and it's bigger than anything we've seen before. If we don't act fast, we could be facing a war." Clara leaned back in her chair, thinking for a moment. Earth's tiny fleet had the element of surprise on its side, but they couldn't rely on that forever. The Draxi would adjust. They would learn to detect the cloaking technology, and the EMP weapons would only work so many times. "We can't wait for them to come to us," Clara said, her voice firm. "We need to take the fight to them before they have a chance to strike first. We need to find their fleets, disable their weapons, and force them to surrender. This is our only chance to avoid full-scale war." Mia nodded in agreement. "I'll get the fleet ready. But Clara, if we're going to do this, we need to be smarter than ever. We can't let them catch us off guard again." Clara stood up and walked to the window, looking out at the stars. She had always believed in humanity's potential, but now it felt like the weight of the galaxy was on their shoulders. If they failed, Earth could be destroyed. But if they succeeded, they would change the course of galactic history forever. "We will win," Clara said softly, her resolve strengthening. "We just have to outsmart them, again." For the next few days, Earth's fleet was on high alert. Clara and her team were planning every move carefully, knowing that the Draxi would be hunting for them. They couldn't afford a mistake. Their fleet, although small, was fast and powerful, but it had to stay hidden, operating in the shadows. If they were caught in the open, the Draxi warships would easily overpower them. Clara spent most of her time coordinating with her team, making sure that every ship was in top condition. They knew that their best chance was to keep the element of surprise. They would strike quickly, disable the Draxi warships before they had a chance to react, and then disappear into the stars once again. The first opportunity came sooner than expected. Intelligence reports showed that the Draxi had gathered a fleet near the asteroid belt, far from any major galactic traffic routes. It was a perfect target. The fleet had no idea that Earth's ships were closing in, cloaked and ready to strike. "We move tonight," Clara said to Mia. "We'll disable their fleet, force them to retreat, and then disappear before they know what happened." The human ships moved into position, as silently as they could. The Draxi fleet was massive, far larger than Earth's ships, but the humans had one advantage: speed. They were able to close in undetected, getting within striking distance of the Draxi before they even knew they were there. "EMP in 10 seconds, Mia called out from her station, ready to disable. Clara's heart pounded in her chest. She knew this was a risk. One mistake, and they could be exposed. But they had trained for this, and she trusted her team. "Now," Clara commanded. The EMP pulse shot out from the human ships, engulfing the Draxi fleet in a wave of electromagnetic energy. As it spread, the Draxi ships began to falter. Their engines sputtered, and their shields failed. In an instant, the fleet was immobilized. The humans moved in quickly, boarding the Draxi ships with ease. Once again, the aliens were caught by surprise. This time, however, there was no time for celebration. The Draxi had learned from their previous mistake. As the human ships disabled the enemy, the remaining Draxi ships began to react. They tried to regroup, but the humans were too fast. Within hours, the Draxi fleet was forced to retreat, once again powerless in the face of humanity's speed and strategy. Clara stood on the bridge, watching the Draxi ships retreat into the distance. Another victory, but she knew it wasn't over yet. The Draxi would be back, and next time, they might be ready for Earth's tricks. Clara smiled to herself. They might be ready, but humanity would always find a way to stay one step ahead. The victory over the Draxi fleet was a significant milestone, but it only fueled the tension. Clara knew the Draxi wouldn't be content with their losses, and she could feel their anger through the endless streams of diplomatic threats and harsh messages. The situation was becoming more dangerous with each passing day. But despite all of this, Clara believed in one thing. Humanity had something the Draxi didn't: creativity. The humans' approach to warfare wasn't based solely on firepower. It was based on strategy and adaptability. This was their secret weapon. And Clara was ready to show the Draxi that humanity could think far beyond what the alien empires had imagined. Back at Earth's command center, Clara gathered her team for an emergency briefing. They had just received intelligence that the Draxi had gathered a massive fleet near a neighboring star system. The scale of their operation was unlike anything they had faced before. This wasn't just about a few warships. It was a full-scale invasion force. "We're going to need everything we have," Clara said, her voice steady as she looked over the data. "This is their response to our last victory. They want to crush us once and for all." Mia nodded, her eyes focused on the holographic map displaying the Draxi fleet's location. "How do we stop them? We're outnumbered, and we can't use the EMPs again. They'll be expecting it." Clara thought for a moment. "We need to make them underestimate us again. The key to winning this is deception." She outlined the plan, and everyone in the room listened intently. The idea was bold, risky, but Clara knew it was the only way. Instead of confronting the Draxi head-on, they would create the illusion of a larger, more powerful fleet. They would use their speed to mislead the Draxi into thinking they were facing a fully armed and massive force. Mia raised an eyebrow. "You want to make them think we have more ships than we really do." "Exactly," Clara replied. "We'll use decoys, fake ships that look like real ones. We'll scatter them in strategic locations around the Draxi fleet, making it appear as if we have the upper hand." The room was quiet for a moment. It was a crazy idea, but Clara could see the spark of belief in her team's eyes. They had done the impossible before. Why couldn't they do it again? We have the technology for this, Clara continued. We've developed the decoys to mimic our ship's energy signatures. We can fool their sensors long enough to buy us the time we need to strike. Mia gave a small smile. You always have the craziest ideas, Clara, but I think this one might just work. As the fleet made its way toward the Draxi star system, Clara's team worked tirelessly to prepare the decoys. Each decoy ship was designed to look and behave like a real one, using advanced holographic technology and energy mimicry. The plan was for the decoys to move into position first, drawing the Draxi's attention and forcing them to waste time and resources tracking down what they thought was a large fleet. The real human ships would be positioned just outside the range of the Draxi's sensors, waiting for the perfect moment to strike. When the fleet arrived at the edge of the Draxi's system, Clara's heart raced. The decoys were deployed, each one sending out faint energy signals that made them seem like real ships. The Draxi fleet, massive and menacing, was already on high alert, but they took the bait. One by one, the Draxi ships began to focus on the decoys, sending out reconnaissance missions to investigate the enemy fleet. Clara could barely contain her excitement as she watched the Draxi warships break formation. The plan was working. This is it, Clara said, her voice a whisper of anticipation. Prepare for the next phase. With the Draxi distracted, the real human ships moved into position, circling the edges of the enemy fleet. They had to be quick. There wasn't much time before the Draxi figured out the deception. The human fleet was smaller, but their tactics were superior. The time for the attack had come. Clara gave the order. We strike now. Human ships darted forward with precision, closing in on the nearest Draxi warships. It was a fast, focused attack, using their superior speed to disable the Draxi's communication systems and target their weak points. The Draxi ships were confused at first, not realizing they were being attacked by a much smaller fleet. As the human ships moved in and out of the shadows, they disabled the Draxi's critical systems, leaving them vulnerable. The attack was swift, efficient, and devastating. In a matter of hours, the Draxi fleet was in disarray. They had been lured into the perfect trap. Some ships had been immobilized, others left floating in space without power. The human fleet didn't stop. They continued to strike, hit-and-run tactics that kept the Draxi guessing. As Clara watched the operation unfold, she felt a deep sense of pride. This was humanity's strength, speed, strategy, and the ability to outthink their enemies. The Draxi, despite their vast fleet, had been outmaneuvered, but Clara knew they weren't done yet. The Draxi would adapt. They always did. As the last Draxi ship retreated, Clara breathed a sigh of relief. They had won this round, but the war was far from over. The galaxy had learned a valuable lesson today. Never underestimate humanity. The victory over the Draxi fleet was a triumph for humanity, but Clara knew it was far from the end. The Draxi were a ruthless race, and their pride would never allow them to accept defeat. She had expected retaliation, but the scale of what came next was beyond anything she had imagined. Days after their victory, a message from the Draxi Empire arrived at Earth's command center. It was a simple, direct message. The Draxi had gathered a much larger fleet, one that dwarfed anything they had sent before. This time, they were coming for Earth itself. Clara's heart sank as she read the message. It was a declaration of war. No longer would they be content with just punishing the humans for their past actions. The Draxi intended to wipe them out, once and for all. This is bad, Maya said, her voice tense. She stood beside Clara as the command center buzzed with activity. They're coming for Earth. We don't have time to prepare. We will prepare, Clara replied, her voice steady. She knew the Draxi would attack quickly, and she knew they had to act fast. But she also knew humanity's strength was not just in their ships or technology. It was in their unity and determination. The humans had already shown they could outthink and outmaneuver their enemies. But now, they were facing the full force of the Draxi Empire, and they would have to use every tactic, every strategy, to survive. The first wave of the Draxi fleet arrived within days. Hundreds of ships filled the sky, their massive forms blocking out the stars. It was a terrifying sight. But Clara wasn't scared. She had been preparing for this moment for years, and she wasn't going to let the Draxi take Earth without a fight. "Send out the decoys," Clara ordered. "We need to buy time, and then we'll strike." The decoy ships were deployed once more, this time in a much larger formation. The plan was the same as before: to confuse the Draxi, make them believe they were facing a far larger fleet than they actually were. The decoys moved quickly, sending out false energy signatures to distract the Draxi long enough for the real human fleet to move into position. But this time, the Draxi were more prepared. They had learned from their previous defeat. As the decoys spread out across the solar system, the Draxi ships responded faster than ever, scanning every ship for signs of trickery. They didn't fall for the same mistake twice. "Something's not right," Maya said as she watched the Draxi fleet's movements. "They're catching on to the decoys. They're closing in too quickly." Clara's mind raced. The Draxi were getting smarter, but she wouldn't back down. She knew they had one advantage: the humans' ability to think on their feet and adjust plans in real time. They didn't need to rely on numbers or overwhelming force. They only needed speed and strategy. "We have to make them think we're retreating," Clara said, forming a new plan. "We need to give them a false sense of victory. We'll draw them in, and then hit them hard." The new plan was risky, but Clara trusted her crew. She trusted their ability to improvise and adapt. The human fleet would retreat at full speed, making it appear as though they were giving up and running. The Draxi would think they had won and would follow in pursuit, believing they had the upper hand. But that's when Clara's fleet would turn the tables. As the Draxi followed the humans, growing more confident with each passing moment, Clara gave the signal. The human fleet, previously in retreat, would suddenly reverse course and strike back with full force, catching the Draxi off guard. The trap was set. The Draxi ships followed the human fleet into deep space, and Clara watched with bated breath as the perfect moment approached. The humans had just enough time to regroup and rearm. The Draxi fleet, now deep within the trap, was surrounded. Clara's heart raced. She had spent hours calculating the exact coordinates for the ambush. Now it was time to make the move. "On my mark," Clara said, her voice calm despite the tension. "All ships, full speed ahead." At her command, the human fleet turned around and surged forward, catching the Draxi off guard. The surprise attack hit the Draxi like a storm, overwhelming their defenses and tearing through their ranks. The Draxi, unprepared for this sudden counterattack, struggled to regroup. The humans had the advantage of surprise, but they had also honed their strategies to perfection. Their ships darted in and out of the fray, focusing on disabling the Draxi ships with pinpoint precision. This was no full-on confrontation. It was a surgical strike. The Draxi, now realizing they had been deceived, tried to regroup and retaliate, but it was too late. The humans had already done enough damage to turn the tide of battle in their favor. The Draxi fleet, though still large, was now in chaos, unable to organize a proper defense. For the first time, the Draxi were on the defensive, and Clara knew this was the turning point. They had taken the fight to the Draxi, and the galaxy would never see humanity as weak again. The battle raged on, but Clara could sense that they were nearing the end. The Draxi fleet, once so confident in its strength, was now in disarray. The surprise attack had caught them off guard, and every ship in the human fleet was focused on taking down as many Draxi ships as possible. Still, the humans were outnumbered, and Clara knew they couldn't afford to let their guard down. The Draxi were relentless, even in the face of defeat. They regrouped, and with their advanced weaponry, began to push back, slowly but steadily. The human fleet was taking damage, and the once proud ships were starting to show signs of wear and tear. Clara had made it clear that they needed to keep fighting, but there was a limit to how long they could keep going at this pace. "We need to finish this," Clara muttered to herself, looking at the chaos unfolding before her. "We can't let them get another chance to strike back." Mia, standing beside her on the bridge, nodded. "We've come too far to back down now. We need to hit them hard." Clara turned to face her. "I've been thinking. There's one more move we can make, but it's risky. If it works, it'll end this fight once and for all. If it fails, we could lose everything." Mia's eyes narrowed. "What are you suggesting?" "The Draxi rely on their powerful central command ship to coordinate their forces. If we can take it down, their fleet will fall apart. But it's heavily guarded." Mia's face set in determination. "We'll make it happen. We've already beaten the odds before." Clara gave a nod of approval. She had always known Mia was brave, but her unwavering belief in humanity's strength gave Clara the confidence she needed. This was their moment to finish the fight. The plan was set in motion. Clara and her crew would lead a small group of ships directly toward the Draxi command ship. It was the heart of the Draxi fleet, and without it, the rest of their forces would fall into disarray. The only problem was that it was heavily protected, with several layers of defense designed to prevent any enemy ships from getting too close. But Clara wasn't intimidated. She had a plan, and she knew they had to act fast. As they approached the Draxi command ship, Clara could feel the tension in the air. The enemy ships closed in, their weapons primed and ready. It was a do-or-die mission. Clara's fingers gripped the control panel tightly, but her mind was clear. The plan had to work. "Steady," she whispered. "We're going in." The human fleet, though outnumbered, moved with precision. Their ships danced around the Draxi defenses, dodging incoming fire and using their speed to avoid being caught in the deadly crossfire. It wasn't easy, but the humans were masters of maneuvering in the heat of battle. Then, just as the Draxi opened fire, Clara gave the command, "Activate the energy shield." A powerful energy shield surrounded Clara's ship and her closest allies. It flared to life just in time to block the Draxi shots. The human ships surged forward, their weapons blazing as they broke through the outer defenses. The Draxi command ship was now within reach, and Clara could see the massive vessel looming ahead, its guns ready to fire. "Lock on target," Clara said, her voice steady but filled with determination. A series of missiles were launched from the human ships, heading straight for the command ship. The Draxi returned fire, but their shots were slow, their aim off. The human fleet was too quick, too unpredictable. Clara knew this was their chance. The missiles struck their target with pinpoint accuracy, exploding in a blaze of fire and light. The command ship shuddered, and for a moment, Clara thought they had done it. But the Draxi weren't done yet. With a final burst of energy, the Draxi sent a desperate counterattack toward the humans, but it was too late. The explosion had caused massive damage to the command ship, throwing the Draxi fleet into chaos. Without their central command, the Draxi ships lost their ability to coordinate, and their once impressive fleet became nothing more than a disorganized mess. "Victory is ours," Mia shouted, her voice filled with relief. Clara allowed herself a moment of quiet celebration. They had done it. The Draxi, once so sure of their superiority, had been defeated. Earth had survived, and humanity had proven that even against overwhelming odds, they could stand strong. As Clara looked out at the drifting remains of the Draxi fleet, she knew that this victory would be remembered for generations. The humans had shown the galaxy that they were a force to be reckoned with, and no one would ever underestimate them again. With the Draxi defeated, humanity's future was brighter than ever. They had faced an enemy that had underestimated them. And in the end, it was the Draxi who had learned the hard way. Earth was safe, and humanity had earned its place among the stars.